Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Nerd Continuity. It's Alex here, your host, and today I'm not gonna be the only one talking into the microphone, but I have an amazing guest, an amazing human being that I met in this magical world called the internet, and his story can relate a lot to my story, and we share a lot, and it's great. I can't wait to hear his stories. So let me shut up and let's start introducing Michael. Hello, Michael. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, pretty good. How are you?
Doing okay, doing good.
Thank you for being here. That's great. I'm so excited.
Awesome.
So before starting, I want to just do a quick introduction. Like, a bunch of users asked me, like, after knowing that I was starting this is also for you, Michael. So I was starting to do this podcast. They asked me, why don't you interview like the lead developer of WordPress or the CEO of this startup or others like these high-end figures in the industries? And I was like, no, because yeah, that could be interesting, but it's something that is so detached from the usual lifestyle that everyone has, from your normal day, that I prefer to talk with people that I can relate to, so I can share the same experience and I can learn something that I can apply to a day-by-day life, and not like, oh, I earned $2 million last year because I created this infinite battery that works on peanut butter. And so like, this stuff, I cannot relate to this stuff, right?
Well, I just have to say, when we both become millionaires, you will have to stop the podcast. So,
Damn. I just destroy my user base. But anyway, okay.
Yeah.
So you can start, like, introduce yourself to these users that they don't know you.
Sure. My name is Michael Dambold. I live in Tulsa. I am a web developer at an IT company. Love it. Love the people. I have been
That's for them, right?
Right. Absolutely. I love you guys. Yeah, I've been working as a web developer for, oh gosh, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years now, and started out as a print designer. And originally went to college for who knows how much. I've changed my major so many times. Finally decided on graphic design, and then when I got out, graphic design died, and decided to go into web development and web design. And so that's kind of where I am right now. And I do a lot of illustration on the side, a lot of graphic design, just fun stuff for personal projects, and a lot of illustration too. I mean, I have some personal illustration projects that I've been doing.
They're awesome, and we're gonna talk about it later.
Hey, you're pretty good at yourself. So.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, so you started as a graphic designer, like Illustrator. Why you decided to switch, and when that happened?
Well, I graduated in 2007, and in 2008, like late 2007. In 2008, the market crashed, and that was when we had our kind of recession. Locally, the place where I was living in Lafayette, Louisiana at the time, and all of my clients just said, we don't have time for illustration. We're terrified of the market. We're terrified of the economy. Some of them flat out told me we're terrified of, well, I'm not going to say that. They were terrified of the current political climate. And so what that caused them to do was to pull in all of their assets and really focus on the core focus of their companies, which did not include graphic design, because graphic design was not well thought of down in that area. Yeah. So it was always kind of like, my brother or cousin or somebody with Word could do it. So
the usual experience at cousin, because my cousin knows how to do this banner.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. Well, and in 2007, the Alecaddd survey said that the median income for graphic designers was about $45,000 to $50,000 a year. Mm-hmm. In 2008, that dropped to 35. So it was an enormous drop, and now it's completely dropped off the map, essentially. Yeah. Nobody's really a graphic designer anymore. There are so many online things like Fiverr that can give you a logo in 5 minutes, and most people are very happy with that. And so print design basically died. But at that time, when I got out of college, I started out as a graphic designer for a magazine called The Acadian, and then I was promoted to layout editor. So I was doing a lot of layout for The Acadian magazine, a lot of rebranding and that kind of thing. So I was able to stay in print for a little bit, but I also had to supplement that with more more clientele in terms of graphic design, creating logos and that kind of stuff. And I was talking with my friend Mary Schamberger, who was a college friend. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. She's a web developer now. We both decided in 2008 that print was dying. I mean, graphic design, as we saw it as an industry, was dying. And however, web design in 2007 was doing okay, but in 2008 it shot up. I mean, just the numbers were astounding, and they're still growing. And so we both decided, we had a Skype conversation one night, and we said we really need to stop doing print design. We really need to move into web design.
Oh, wow.
So she actually went back to school, got a second degree, and decided to be all fancy about it. And I decided
fancy
to be
people that they can afford to study.
Yeah. I mess with her about that. But she's brilliant. She's really good.
Absolutely.
And she's also an illustrator too. And so I self-taught. And so I moved up to Tulsa and got a job at a newspaper here as a web designer, and worked there for about 3.5 years, and decided after a while that really the print industry was something I would like to do, just not as a web designer, because it's in a very unusual state right now. Print design is trying to figure out where it's supposed to be. In terms of the digital age and iPads and that kind of thing. And you have people who are either completely rejecting it and, getting all curmudgeon-y about, I like holding it in my hands and I like flipping pages. And I can't tell, I've had over like 2 or 3 dozen people, and I like that too, but I don't believe that's the only way that it's going. We've already moved far beyond that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you remember when the iPad and it started like the first ebooks, everyone would say, oh, like normal books, like paper books are dead, like libraries are gonna be empty, just database. Not. It's not true. Like 10 years after, we still have a lot of books, and we still like consume a lot of paper books, because it's like so.
Well, and we're running into an issue of, there was some people have been kind of like whispers in the dark of our current digital dark age, that we don't back anything up, and we're not backwards compatible with a lot of older technology. So information is actually being lost, and that is a big problem. So always back up your stuff. Always make hard copies. Print it out, because the thing is, we don't have an EM shield against solar flares, and just because we haven't had one doesn't mean we're not going to have one. So if we had, let's say, like a giant, solar flare appears, and decides to just destroy our databases, your Facebook page is gone, as well as everything that you've done for the last, 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years maybe. I think it's been 10 years.
Also, like all your pictures or data backed up on these iCloud or these other like cloud platforms.
Hey, put it on CD. Put it on something that cannot be necessarily easily destroyed by high electromagnetic fluxes and EM storms. And so anyway, just segueing, but everything's in flux right now. But the one thing that's not in flux is web design. Everybody needs a website, and everybody needs web development, and that's dealing with web systems. Because even if a solar storm, honestly, if a solar storm hits, we'll be in more demand than we were before. Because they'll want us to rebuild databases, rebuild systems, rebuild frameworks, that kind of thing. So we're pretty much good, unless a meteor hits and turns us all into the dark age.
But
to that point,
hopefully not.
So,
let's not do that.
Anyway.
So there was a specific point in your life when you realized, like, you actually always liked web design and web development, or it was like a logical path, like I should do this, and then you started liking it after a while, or it was always, oh my god, I love this field, I love like coding and doing websites?
It was always there for me. I mean, back in 1998, I was creating the very basic early websites. That looked so bad. I'm so glad no one ever saw it. But I think we all have those. It was a part of, computers and technology was always a part of my life, and it just wasn't a focus until 2008. And then I began to realize how easy it was, because compared to, C# and C++ and
Oh God.
that kind of stuff. HTML is actually really easy,
Yeah.
because and the reason why it's so easy is because it's straightforward. You tell it to do something and it's going to do it. And debugging really is an issue of I guess the tone or mood of the browser that you're dealing with. That's really all that troubleshooting comes down to. And if you deal with code written by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, which happens to us all
the time.
It's like opening a Photoshop file and realizing that they have 100 layers and none of them are named.
Yeah.
And then they're all in random subfolder groups, and you just want to basically kill this person. So, but yeah, I mean, it was always just kind of in the background and something I would do for fun. And then I realized I could actually make, because at that point I was also making, when I started moving in that direction, I started making WordPress websites and started dealing with WordPress. And WordPress was a lot more difficult to deal with when I was younger. Back 10 years ago, WordPress was not what it is today. Not anywhere near as user-friendly. And so it was a headache. But now most of what I do is WordPress related and PHP related. So it's always good. Just keep, that's kind of like the axiom of, do what you love, even if you're doing it on the side, because that may end up being something that you can use in the future, even though it doesn't look like it now. So
if you keep developing your skills, sooner or later they're gonna be useful to create an actual income and your rent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. So you mostly use WordPress and you code in PHP. There are other technologies that you usually work, or you you keep studying and you experimenting with other stuff?
Yeah, most of what I do right now was with responsive design and Parallax. I have several Parallax projects that I'm working on, which for you guys that don't know, it uses Parallax.js. Excuse me. Oh gosh, you're gonna have to cut that out. I'm so sorry.
What? Did you burp?
Did. I'm so sorry.
That's fine. It's part of the being a developer, right?
So fancy.
I'm not gonna cut this out. I'm sorry.
Well, okay. Sorry, guys. I swear I'm an adult. Anyway, so what Parallax uses, it's parallax.js, and it's a JavaScript file that basically takes several divs that you create and moves them at different scroll speeds whenever you scroll down the page. So it looks like some divs are in front of others, and it kind of overlaps them a little bit. So it looks like you're actually kind of scrolling through a multi-layered document which is processed through the browser. So for Tulsa World, I had several special projects that dealt with local celebrities, local events, past events, that kind of thing. Race riots, local televangelist, Woody Guthrie, who was a famous country music star, just random people that had affected Tulsa in one way or another. And we had special projects for them, and I would do that using Parallax. And so now that I'm not working there anymore, I'm still using Parallax just for personal projects. And just the whole point, I think, for me right now is trying to find something that a lot of people are not doing and make something fun out of it.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Kind of experiment. The problem with web experimentation is that it may not always be used, and people may go from, it's like creating a mobile site. There was the mobile sites versus responsive, several years ago, and responsive one. And it's always going to be the VHS versus Betamax. And
it's always a shot in the dark. You have to try. Let's try this way. I don't know if it's gonna work.
I have so many Betamax tapes. But at least you're. I mean, even if it doesn't work out, at least you have that experience of working on that.
It's always part of your history and your skill baggage. Like you still improve yourself, even if you try something that is not gonna be like the most amazing technology that everyone is gonna use. At least you have more skills in something, and it helps you. Even if the topic is completely different, having those kind of skills helps you improve whatever you're gonna do next.
Yeah, totally agree.
Awesome. That's great. So how do you usually What's your day normally, and when do you have time, if you have time, like to update your skill or follow tutorials, workshop, or whatever? Like, what's your day life?
A lot of, well, a normal work day, I don't want to give out too much. Let's say that after my day job, I usually come home, and I basically have a running list of skills that I need to update. Because I was self-taught, that I know that there are holes, and so I'm going through lynda.com, Free Code Academy, anything I can get my hands on to try and fill in any holes that I have with any kind of code. Because some people who are self-taught will learn one thing, and then they'll say, I'm finished, it's over, and I'm good. And that's really the worst thing you can do, especially with code, because it's constantly updating itself. It's like someone learning responsive. It's like someone using Bootstrap 2 and then saying, I'm done. But then Bootstrap 3 comes out, it has an entirely different syntax, and they're still trying to build everything in Bootstrap 2. It's going to work, but it's going to look very dated. And people who are looking at you, who know what they're doing, are going to judge you so harshly.
Yes, exactly. It happens all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, we do it. We look at other people's code and go, what year is this? Yeah. I mean, I've looked at some people's websites and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this from GeoCities? Like 1998? Hello.
That's great.
Yeah, so, it's always important. Like, I don't know, for me, it's constantly running and trying to update. And I'm always on Smashing Magazine, Web Designer Depot, Web Design Ledger. I've subscribed to several news sites. Anything new that comes out, I will try to figure out if it's relevant, if it's something useful, if it's a fluff thing. Sometimes there are some code workarounds that I personally, when I read them, believe to be a little extraneous, a little too much, a little too. In Louisiana, they would call it lagniappe, which is a Cajun destruction of a French word, which means just a little extra. There's good lagniappe and there's bad. Okay. And I think if the code that is released is going to cause you more work and cause you more time on a project, then I don't think it's useful. But I always look for shortcuts, anything to make it run faster. Someone asked me, what is more important to you, having something work or having something, be perfect? And I said, well, from being in the publishing industry for so long, if you have a deadline, you have a deadline. Yes. And a deadline is a deadline is a deadline. And if you're late, then that's it. Because in the news and print industry, if you're late for a deadline, you start losing tens of thousands of dollars.
Yes, exactly.
Sometimes for every hour that you lose. And I've been in it so long that really it's doing the best you can with what you have. And even as long as it gets the main points done and it works well and you leave room for improvement, I consider that a success. And I think most people who've been you may agree, I think most of us who have been in the industry long enough will agree that, okay, make it work first, function first.
Yes, absolutely. Like, deadline is the most important thing. Then there's always room for improvement, and like you said, never being satisfied. Like, never being, okay, this is working and it's fine. Like, I know some people that I don't like to work with, that they use the same JavaScript codes that they used to use like 5 years ago, just because it works. And I'm like, yes, it works. And it saves you like probably 20 minutes of doing a small research and see if there's an update. But then it costs us 5 hours of debugging because it's not working with a lot of other different technologies, and it's just insane. So,
I agree. I actually agree with that. I think if you're trying to save money, and that's the balance, because if you're trying to save money and time by getting a badge, I guess you could call it a badge shortcut, where, it saves us an hour. Well, it saves us an hour now, but I've gone through projects where I've picked it up from somebody else, and it may have saved them an hour, but it's costing me 8 hours.
Exactly.
Because it's so fundamentally ingrained within the website that I have to pull it out. It's like pulling a string out of a quilt. or out of a blanket. And if you pull that string, the whole thing begins to fall apart.
Oh my
So you have to patch everything. I mean, I think we've all had those disasters where,
Oh yes.
somebody was probably on meth or something that was building the site.
Constantly on meth.
You
Why not?
meth website builders are the worst.
Yeah.
But it's try to shortcut as much as you can without sacrificing like future time. It's for instance, like creating a form on a website. If you're creating a form and they want it to look incredibly fancy and it's going to take you an extra hour, then you could explain to the client, why don't we get it running first, and then after launch we'll do this as phase 2. We'll go back and we'll add all of the CSS and all the other functionality and all the animated GIFs of kitty cats that you want. Because that's always superfluous. That's always extra stuff that you can do later. But the whole point is, if they've got a website launch, like, I don't know, next Friday, you need to just make sure that people can sign up for their newsletter, or people can sign up for their constant contact form, or whatever is being used
that
at the
it
time.
actually works and
it works. Yeah. Because I would rather spend 4 hours on usability testing.
Yes.
User interface, usability testing, and user experience. I would prefer to test on that with a minimum and have it work than to make everything look fancy and destroy the UI and the UX.
Yes.
Because those are unacceptable losses, I think, to all of us. If you have something that looks nice and can't work, it's a failure.
Terrible. Yeah, no, absolutely. So,
because the client will not come back to you. So.
Oh no. So what, we're talking a lot about UI, UX, and optimization, debugging, all this stuff, but probably some users, especially because the target of these podcasts and my tutorials for beginners. Mm-hmm. So what kind of suggestion would you like to give to a beginner's developer on all those matters like UI, UX, and the personal ability to just keep pushing and keep updating yourself and never being satisfied? What would you like to say to, or maybe to yourself 10 years ago? What would you like to say? Slapping, I was slapping myself in the face. And
I think we all would. We could all go back 10 years ago and be like, there's some decisions you are going to make that will be really horrible. Don't make them. But, well, for beginners, learn why things work. That, to me, is the most important. That is how I learn. That is how I've always learned. And I am not satisfied. And I get upset when someone tells me to just do it this way, because just do it,
Yes.
Not do it.
Because it's always
I'm trying
like that, right?
Right. And I'm the kind of person that needs to know why something happens the way it does. Why does HTML work the way that it works? Why is CSS important to HTML? Why does WordPress work the way it does? Why? Because the thing is, if you're going to become a solid developer, you need to understand why things work. Because, it's like graphic design. You need to understand why Comic Sans is a horrible font. And, you need to understand
why everyone picks always Comic Sans. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh my god. Oh, we are done.
Just a little bit like a digression. My main goal as a web designer is making a website that looks good in Comic Sans. That would be a major success.
That would be a miracle.
That would be some sort of a miracle.
It's wow.
But anyway, keep going. Sorry.
It's a combination. Learn the basics. Get a solid foundation. The thing is, your skyscraper, the skyscraper of your career can only go as high as the foundation will allow it to go. If you do not have a strong foundation on the basics, and this is not just the basics of code, but it's the basics of design. It's the elements and principles of design. If you do not have a strong understanding of that, you will only be able to go so far, because they never change. No matter how high you get, if you're working for multi-million-dollar clients, those principles, the elements and principles of design, as well as the fundamentals of code and how they work, will not change. Get those first. Get the fundamentals of HTML. Get the fundamentals of CSS. Build the foundation of your skyscraper, because a lot of times, you hear in the news that the foundation of a skyscraper was cracked, or there were, it was weak. It wasn't as strong as it should have been. The skyscraper will collapse, and our careers are the same way. Always and never stop growing that foundation. Like, never stop working on. I always go back every once in a while, and I will just refresh myself on HTML and CSS, and on the elements and principles of design. I'll do like little. I'll create little tests for myself, or little exercises, because you have to. It's like football too. You have to go back to the basics. Any kind of any sport you play, you have to go. If you're doing something wrong and things aren't working, go back to the basics and figure out why. It's the same thing with music and with anything you do. If something's off and you're not sure why, go back to the basics and review them, and then it might become a little clearer, because we've all done that. I mean, this is not me telling you that any of us are perfect. This is
absolutely.
We all have those days where we're like, why isn't this working? You go back to the basics and realize, oh, that's why. That doesn't change.
So the main reason, like, at the basics that you're suggesting, like, don't be lazy, basically. Never be lazy.
I've seen people in design, in graphic design and in web design, start from a point and then build only on that point.
Yes.
And that is so dangerous. You will always be walking on a razor's edge. Some new thing could come in and completely nullify what you're doing if you specify in just one thing. That's why the foundation is so important, because for instance, that I've known people who have not gone to college or gone to school or have had any formal training in design, and all they do is mimic the current styles of design out there. Yes. Which right now is probably the easiest that it's ever been, because it's a giant photograph and white text over it. Yes. And I have problems with that, because it's being misused. When it's good, it's good, and a designer is working on it. But when it's bad, it's noticeable. We all know it, and we all see it. And it's a harsh. I mean, the thing is, design is harsh. It is, you either sink or swim. And my design teacher told me that, and then told the entire class, there were 30 of us in this class, and he said only 5% of you will get jobs out of this entire class. He said, if that. And he said, and I'm not talking about here. I'm not talking about Lafayette. He said, he's saying in general, it is competitive and it is rough. Yes. And for you to have a career, you need to be good. But really what it comes down to is just it's like what you said. Yeah. I mean, don't be lazy. Just be diligent about building that foundation. I mean, I never stress overworking or performance. I overwork myself, but I never recommend, don't sacrifice your personal life, for this. But also don't ignore it.
Yeah, it has to be like a constant part of your life. It has to be like immersed in your daily life. It doesn't have to be something external that you do once in a while just because it's your job but you don't like it. It has to be part of your life.
Right, and it'll get to a point, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I mean, it is a serious thing. And the thing is, though, once you get the foundation, things become so much easier, because all of a sudden that foundation provides a compass for you for good and bad design, and you will be able to look at a design and say, no, that's not good, and you'll be able to tell people why it isn't good, because you can say the balance is off. This, through my career, several times people have sent me things and have said, I don't like this and I don't know why, and I'm able to, and you're able to sit down and you'll be able to explain to them why they don't like it. Yes. Because design works on our brains are wired a specific way. That we are wired, our brains are wired to determine hierarchy. Yeah. And design is all about hierarchy. It's about telling the person what is the most important thing about a certain product or a group of products. Yes. And if websites most importantly, if they don't follow hierarchy, they're going to confuse you, and you have maybe a half a second to convince someone to stay on your website, and if they don't like it, then they go. And So as long as you follow the elements and principles of design, I mean, you're going to have some solid work. And it's not like this. There's no mysterious anything about it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all,
Secret ingredient.
yeah,
Like
there's no
something like,
secret
why don't
ingredients.
you tell me your secret as a web designer?
Right,
There's no
right.
secret.
And secret is there are no secrets. Everybody follows the same rules, and that's the thing. The more you follow the rules, the better off it is for you, and
Yes.
that will sustain you throughout your entire career. And a lot of people think that it's some secret, monks high in the Cochise Mountains, guarding these treasure troves. That I just made a Homestar Runner reference, but
That's good.
it's just like this closely guarded secret of Davy Jones's locker that you have to travel to Atlantis to find, and it's not. It's just everybody doing. It's the client's requests being addressed through the elements and principles of design and using proper code.
Yes.
And that's really what it comes down to. And that's never going to change. And that's that's like relieving thing is that the thing is once you learn the basics of design, that will never change, ever for the rest of your.
That's great. That's a good point. That it's amazing. Like focus on the basics. A lot of users they ask me like during the tutorials that I'm starting from the basics, like. What do you think about like the Genesis framework, or if I don't know PHP, but if I start using CodeIgniter framework or Laravel framework, do you think it's fine? It's fine. And every time I say, no, you should start from the basics, because even if you have a framework that speeds up a lot your process and it gives you the ability to build a website in 2 days instead of 1 month, but you don't know the basics, you're gonna be stuck in the loop. And as soon as you try to do something a little bit outside of the box, it's going to be like madness, because you don't know where to put your hands.
Right. And there's no compass. It's like the same people who are designing ads that have never had any formal training and they're just doing what they see.
Exactly.
Well, that's nice, but that's not going to make you an actual designer. Yes. And to be honest, most of the design community will not consider you a designer. And I know this is all heavy stuff, and I know please don't, if you're listening to this, please don't get freaked out. But I mean, once you enter the professional world, like, you gotta fight,
Yeah, you have to fight.
And I'm talking from someone who has been, able to fight. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's all fancy sugar plums and fairies and Oz and cute little anime girls that are going to come out of nowhere and give you a secret formula. It's just simply
that
just
would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be. It's just simply, it really just is following the rules and working hard, because these are not industries that will reward laziness.
Exactly.
And I think to all of our degrees, there's stuff that we all need to work on, of response time and that kind of thing. And we all have those issues, but that's okay because we're all working on it. Exactly. And it's rough, but it's also exhilarating, because once you have a completed successful product, I cannot say successful for some reason. Once you have a success and the client's happy and it's working and their SEO is doing great, and the rewards are so worth it, because you worked hard on it, you worked fast. And the thing is, and people have asked me too, how do you get so fast at this? And same thing for art. I've heard this with concept artists. I've heard this with musicians. I've heard this all across the board. Don't focus on becoming fast. Focus on becoming good. Get good. Don't get fast. Because as you keep doing it, you'll get faster and faster. Keep doing it over and over again, and eventually you'll realize that you're doing it maybe half the time or a third of the time. But it just comes. It's like playing a computer game. For instance, we all played Super Mario World as kids, right? Or any Super Mario game. Can you imagine how slow we were the first time we played it through?
Oh yes, jumping on the same spot for 20 minutes, try to understand the buttons and stuff.
Exactly. Dying so many times, restarting the game. But now, as adults, it's been so many years, and we've played it probably however many times, we can just fly through those levels, because we're like, oh yeah, I know that's happening, I know that's coming, I know this is going to happen. And we can almost do it blindfolded. And that is how design works. And that's how web design works, is that,
that's right.
Even with new obstacles, even if we were able to to have all new levels of those games, we would still do pretty well.
Yes,
because
the basics and the engine at the bottom is the same.
Same Goombas, same turtle shell back, same Koopas, same everything, same Mario. That's how it works. It's just a new level, but everything is the same. You can always expect something to act a certain way, unless like the game glitches and
Oh yes,
flows.
so the developers of those games say, okay, let's make something impossible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's gotten to the point where some people even make music out of those game levels. Where they do, like you see it on YouTube, where they do these crazy, amazing things. But that's because they know exactly what does what and the timing of everything. And that's actually incredibly analogous to web design. You see these amazing websites out there that it just blows your mind. And you're just like, how do they do that? Well, it's because they know the basics and fundamentals so well that they can cheat it. Yeah, and then they can cheat the browsers, and they can cheat things to make them look completely crazy. Yes. And so basically, if you're a new developer and you're looking at this, basically what you're seeing out there right now are advanced techniques and tricks based on people who know how the system works and who know how the rules work. So the goal is to understand that to get to that level, you need to understand the basics and have a solid understanding. Because it's from there, because as you're going through the basics, you're going to realize, oh wait, I can do this. Oh wait, I can do this. And you start getting ideas as you learn the fundamentals and as you learn the basics. And
that's
so
amazing advice. That's the best. Where were you 10 years ago? Why do you do? Can you invent a time machine? Call me back in Italy 10 years ago and say, "Hey, dude, you should do this."
I've learned this too. I mean, this is just stuff that you kind of learn, and I don't believe information should be held back from people. I really hate that idea.
Oh, yes, exactly.
I understand. Yeah, I understand like paying for tutorials and that kind of thing. But I think if any way you can help other people, it's just basics. It's like driving. Oh my gosh, I'm driving in Canada. For me, let's say someone from the United States is driving in Canada. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is terrifying. Really, no, it's not. You just need to know the map of where you're going. But driving doesn't change. Your car doesn't automatically have a new engine. It's not automatically some kind of, it's not the TIE Fighter, and it's not the X-Wing from Star Wars. It's still your car. You're using the same engine, and you're using the same basics of turning left and turning right and steering the wheel and the brake and the gas. It's the same thing. It's just a different map. And that's exactly what code and art and music is. It's, once you learn the basics of everything, then you've got it. And I really have a problem with people who get down on others for learning the basics, or treating them like, oh, you're just learning the basics, like that's some bad thing. Some people, in art, definitely, they're like, oh, you're just learning the basics, and it's really only been
the best thing ever. Actually, is the best, it's the most satisfying thing ever. Like learning.
I think it's really more of a jealousy type of thing, especially in some art circles. It gets nasty. I have not experienced that in professional illustration circles. Let me just be very clear. People who are illustrators, I have not witnessed that. Because as an illustrator, it is already assumed that you have the basics of composition down, the arts and elements and principles, and your style, because your style will develop from learning the basics. Your style will not develop from imitating the style of others. That's in drawing class. They told us in college. They said no anime. Don't ever do anime. Don't ever do stylized drawings. We were not allowed to do it. We would be failed. Actually, one class they told us that they would fail us if they saw it. And we got terrified. We're like, why? They said, because you're drawing style and you're not drawing the basics. You're here to draw the basics, and you're here to master the basics. They said, if we see you trying to do style, you said your style comes later on. Exactly. And your style will develop from understanding the basics. And it's all the same thing. Everything in life is the same thing. Yes. Learn the basics, and then your style happens. And I hate... Yeah, don't skip. And I really, as some drawing circles, I'm hearing and I have heard and I've seen on some tutorials of, if you buy this brush set, you are going to be like me and be able to work at X company. Or, you
How
know,
many
if you
times?
do
Yeah.
this, or if you do this magical thing, or get this magical file, then this is going to make you a professional whatever. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's not. And I believe that to be at best disingenuous, because
Yes.
it's not emphasizing. I almost, and sometimes when I see some of these things, I wonder if these people just don't want other people to grow. Because, and I know that, and I'm actually, and I'm really serious. I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. I don't have a specific example. This is just years and years of me seeing this from
Yes.
every different side. And this is not, I have nobody in mind when I'm thinking this. It's just, I just question whenever I see someone trying to really overemphasize a certain product, saying this is
Yes.
going to solve all of your problems.
Yes.
I wonder if there's not some kind of subconscious need to put others down or to limit other people, because if you're really going to help them, you need to teach them the basics.
Yeah.
And say, you know, the reason I can draw this amazing, fantastic landscape is because the elements and principles of design, you know, and because I just simply applied texture to this composition. And I know this is probably going to get me in trouble, and I'm probably going to get people mad at me for saying this, but I'm being, you know, I'm being serious, because I really think that it, you know, with anything in life, you know, even with bodybuilding, like weird stuff that you wouldn't think, you know, it's always the basics first. You always learn proper form and technique, and then you see people like, you know, doing these amazing things with these, with their muscles, or doing, you know, even athletes. You know, we tend to look at everyone and try to Hollywood idealize them and say, oh, how do they get there? They must have some magic formula. No, they just worked harder than other people at the basics.
Exactly.
And developed a style that people would like. And you know, those industries are far less magical. And it's also, the thing is, if you work hard, you're going to make the right connections.
Yes.
So, you
That's
know,
important also.
that, you know, that style and connections come from working very hard. You know,
That was
it's
a good
like
transition from your web development side to your comic side to the
Oh, yeah.
drawing side. It was I had trouble, like how I'm gonna transition from this to that. You did
get me
it for
ranting.
me. That's amazing. So I'm gonna ask you the next question that is like directly related. So when did you actually started drawing? Because if you don't know, like Michael already presented itself, but he's an amazing artist. He's an amazing illustrator. You should check his work online. We're gonna talk about all the website where you can find his work. But designing and drawing is one of your like main part of your life. Like it's like every day you draw something and you illustrate something. So when that happened, when did you start? The first time, if you can remember the first time you took a pencil or a pen and said, "Oh, this is great."
I didn't say that, but yeah, I remember the first time. Yeah, it was actually that. I was
like for everyone, like.
Oh gosh, I was so young. I was living in Virginia at the time, and I was expressing that I was really inspired by a Disney movie, and I wanted to draw something. And I was like, I just want to do it. I just want to express. I didn't say it like this. I just wanted to express my love for something. And I think it was a Little Mermaid, because I was fascinated with underwater life. I loved the idea of these animals that lived underwater. And my mom said, well, why don't you just draw something? And I said, I can't draw. She said, well, just try it. And so I drew this dolphin, which looked like this banana with like horrible limbs coming out of it. And it was just, I remember looking at that going, this sucks. I was like, I pushed it, I threw it down on the table, and I was like, this is horrible. And she said,
that's how dolphins are, right? Or bananas were.
It's horrible thing. And my mom said, well, it's just because you haven't practiced. And she said, the more you practice, the better. And she's an artist. So, I, of course, was like 5, I didn't get this. And she's like, but the more you practice, the better it's going to get. And she said, are you willing to practice to get better at this? And because it's not going to be perfect the first time out. And I thank God for that kind of bit of advice, because that's like everything.
One of the best advice ever, actually.
Yeah. And so she gave me a piece of paper, and she said, do it again, and just keep doing it, and just keep drawing it. And so that's how I started drawing. I would not have started drawing if I, because I just didn't think I could. And so I started really focusing on that. And she was basically my art coach, I guess.
Wow.
But it wasn't an issue of, oh, honey, this looks so good. Because I would sometimes give her, and this was good though, because she was teaching me to be serious about art, and I mean, she would be very encouraging. I mean, don't get me wrong, she was not a taskmaster. She was always incredibly encouraging, but she also knew when to push. Yes. Because I would I drew a picture of a human face, and I was like, hey, look at this, and I was obviously very high on myself for being a 12-year-old. And I was like, yeah, I could draw people, and she's like, yeah, keep going. And I was like, what? It's not good. She's like, you need to learn how the human face works. And so she's like, you're doing good. She's like, she said, you're doing really good. He said, but this is an area that you can work on. And this is an area where you can improve. And it's good to learn how grids work, how the grid of the face works, and where the eyes are and proportions. And I was like, proportions? What's that? Just like, it started just kind of.
For what I hear, she had a lot of sensibility on like showing you where to improve and what you did kind of like wrong.
Because it wasn't and I never felt like anything was wrong as much as it was not there yet. And she never just patted me on the head and said, oh honey, that's good, and that's not how it worked in my house. And so but I ended up leaving art when I was, I think, 14, 15. I was a teenager, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I dropped it. I didn't draw a thing for years and years and years.
Why? Like, is related to a specific event or just happened?
Not particularly. I just was trying to. I was 16 and trying to find myself. It's just like I don't want to do art.
The grunge time. Punk rebellion.
I got really into technology, really into photography. Photography was really the big thing that I did when I was in high school. I did a lot of state competitions, and I got into a lot of public speaking. Doing a lot of different things, community service, that kind of stuff, and just focusing on trying to get into college. I mean, I thought I was going to do something completely different with my life, and it's funny because it all just started coming back to. It all started coming back to art. It all started coming back to, not art specifically, but like technology with an artistic flair, I guess. I don't know. But the thing is, there was no Paul. There were a few experiences, but there was nothing that, I don't know. It was just growing, I think. And I think we're all like that. I think it's, I know some people who were born into art and they grow into it and they, they're like, this is who I am. And for me, it was more like a practical, this is what you can have if you work for it. It was I was never handed things, in terms of art. I took a few art classes in high school, but that was it. I didn't regain my interest for it until college, when I realized that it was something that I actually liked doing, because I didn't want to be a painter. I didn't want to go into painting necessarily to do that, but I wanted to use art somehow, and design kind of came across and said, it kind of came into my life, and it was like, wow, I can actually use art to make cool stuff.
Was it actually easy for you, like in your entire growing process, like switching from an art side and a technical side? Because, like, as you know, we used completely two different parts of our brain, like the logical part and the creativity part. So
I think,
have you ever had problems like smashing parts between each other? No.
Sometimes I get into modes, and modes are difficult to get out of sometimes. Like, if you're getting into a coding like spree, where you're spending 4 or 5 hours in code, and then all of a sudden you look at art and you're like, what is this? It's just sometimes you get into it. But it's not, there's nothing magical. The thing is, sometimes people look at your work and they look at you and they're like, oh wow, you can do all this art, you can do all. The thing is, when I got into college, I started. The thing about my art school was that it was intense, and it was thorough, but it covered everything. And So really, I was basically self-taught growing up, but then I had to stop that, and I had to go through formal training, which means I had painting, I had drawing, I had sculpture, I had three-dimensional, two-dimensional design. I had to think of art in ways that I had not thought of it before, because most of it was just line art and drawing, and that's why people see the line art and they're like, "Oh wow, look at this line art." And I'm like, "No, I've been doing this since I've been doing line art since I was a kid." It would be much more difficult for me to take a sculpture and to try and create that. And people don't tell you this stuff. This is the stuff that artists will not tell you, especially online. But we all have strengths in art and we have weaknesses.
Oh,
and
exactly.
so
Absolutely.
there's stuff that I mean, line art is really easy for me. But if you're going to sit there and tell me to paint something, I haven't spent a lot of time on painting. And really, what I think my friend AJ Nazzaro kind of mentioned this years ago. I was having a conversation with him. He's an amazing artist. He does absolutely amazing work. He said, but he wonders that if what some people call gifts is really more of a willingness for us to spend time on a certain subject. And he says, we may, and I kind of agree with him. We have a proclivity towards something. But man, it's like a muscle. If you don't grow it, if you don't spend time on it, it's just going to stay that way.
Yeah,
Exactly. And maybe you may have a natural inclination to do something, but unless you work it, unless you work it, you're not going to get anything out of it. And I think so. When I look at people's art now, I'm amazed by it. And most people's art just blows my mind. A lot of my friends' art just absolutely just blows my mind, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. I can't believe it. Just I had some of my friends will show me art, and I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm closing up. I'm done. Throwing my pen out the window. I'm good.
I don't want to draw anymore.
Yeah, and it just absolutely they astound me. But I also know that they have. When you get into design and development and art or any kind of industry, stuff kind of it can stay magical, but it stops losing its hyper magic feeling. I don't really know how to describe that. Yeah. Because you now realize that it's attainable, that you can do it if you spend enough time on it. And it's kind of like people who work in Hollywood, who are part of the movie making process. It's far grittier and much less magical. It's like journalism. Once you get in there, it is not Lois Lane. Our journalism is not Lois Lane. It is long hours, staying late, and having to write things over and over again. And it's like we grow up with these magical concepts of what something is, and I don't see myself painting by the seashore. I am sitting in, I've got the offices that I work in is great, but it's not this kind of hyper magical thing where someone is coding in, the forest, deep in the forests of Vancouver, or the Northwest, where they're like, these huge.
Happens here, actually. People.
It does, yeah, I'm sure. That's my end goal. See, my end goal is actually to move to the forest of Vancouver, deep into the woods, and get a hobbit hole, and then code and get a really long epic beard.
The master of coding.
Yes, and I will also summon all of the woodland animals to my aid. And so this is my future right here. This is what's gonna happen.
That's great.
I'm gonna be freaking Snow White, but with a giant epic beard. So like Gandalf Snow White. I don't know.
Now you have to draw this. Now you have to draw this image of yourself as a Snow White.
Sure. I'll come out and I'll just start talking like Gandalf. No, but that's not my future, of course. But it's just I think with any industry you go into, you can maintain that magical love for it, but still understand the practical grunt work that goes into it.
For me, I can totally relate with this. For me, I remember it was 8 or 9 years ago when I was starting digital painting. I was trying to experiment with Photoshop and other softwares, and I couldn't understand. I was watching these concept arts from games and movies, and they were magical. These images were amazing. Oh my god, how they do it! They look real. Then one day I remember that day I started I imported that picture, one of the sketch inside the software, and I zoomed in a lot, and I saw the brush strokes, and I thought, oh, this is made of strokes, the same stroke I do. So how's that possible? So that moment I understood, oh, it's not magic or special powers or something. It's just really, really hard work. That. So So it was like,
Yeah.
that was for me.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people, in a lot of art schools, they have you copy the masters, because you kind of figure out, they're like, basically what you're doing is figuring out how they did it. So, and it's not that the magic is taken away. If you learn to paint the Mona Lisa exactly like Da Vinci, which I don't know anybody who has, but if you learn to do that, if you learn to grow on that level, it doesn't make the Mona Lisa less magical. It just you just kind of, it's kind of cooler, because you become even more of a nerd. I'm just saying, you're going to become more of a nerd, and you're going to walk up into any kind of art gallery and your face is going to be right up on the painting, because you're going to be analyzing exactly how they did it. Like there was at Philbrook here, we have multiple art shows that come through, and every time I will get as close as I can to every Monet, every Rembrandt, every kind. There are several Picassos that are permanent. They're part of the permanent exhibition there. And I mean, first time I saw it, my face was right up, as close as I could get, without touching it and getting in trouble. Because I was analyzing all of the brushstrokes, and kind of imagining in my head how he would stand there and render or portray this image by using these. Because basically, just this is a bit of a crude summation, but he just would take his paintbrush, dunk it into the paint, into the acrylic paint, and then slather it. And but he was good enough and he had painted long enough that he could do that, and be that rough with it, and be that coarse with it, and still produce what he's produced. And I think it's the same level of mastery as Monet, who was able to create these absolutely breathtaking and beautiful art pieces. And the same thing with the old masters who, like, I don't want to destroy their names. I just cannot remember their Italian names, but they're from the Middle Ages, who were creating these amazing art pieces. I think it was De Fabriano.
Fabriano.
And what he would do, though, and this kind of style has gone out of style, of course, but he would add pigment to egg yolks or egg whites. He would add pigment to egg whites, and how fast eggs can dry, and especially if you turn it into a paint. And so they're having to paint like crazy, but they're having to paint these incredibly intricate, detailed art pieces. And at first you're like, how do they do that? But then your professional brain, part of your brain kicks in, and says, well, they were just think about all of the stuff that they threw out that was not good. How many times did they do that before they could get to the point where they
like also the Da Vinci's sketches, like how many sketches he drew about hands, or how many thousands of human faces he drew before like doing paintings or stuff. Like he was constantly sketching on everything and experimenting. So what you're saying basically, that is actually the topic of these podcasts, is you have to be a nerd. You have to totally embrace your nerd
in a way.
side.
You have to have a love for it, and you have to have a love that will carry you through the grunt work.
Exactly.
And that's really what it comes down to, is that you must love it enough to go through what's necessary to get to the point that you want to get to.
Yes.
And because if you don't love it enough, you won't go through what is necessary to get there. And it's okay. And this is the other thing that our society doesn't teach. It's okay if you don't have that love.
Yes.
Because that means you do have a love somewhere else. And it's okay if
your love,
and you can be halfway through going through something, and then finally realize you hate it to go somewhere else, and that's okay. Because it's better. Honestly, it's better you do that now at any point, whatever your age is. It's better that you do it now than to be 70 years old and to always regret not having done it, because you live once. Even the people who believe in reincarnation, you're only going to be this person once, and I think we can all agree on that. And it's you only have one chance to really find something that you love.
Absolutely.
And if you don't love it, why do it?
Exactly. Just find something else. It's great.
And the internet allows us to be able to change that now. If you're in code and art and you like auto mechanic, if you like mechanic work better, there are things you can find on the internet, tutorials and other stuff to help you,
there are tutorials about everything, even like shirt folding or like
if you want to be a
ironing.
That's your life. You got it.
Talking about the internet, we go into the next question that is a little bit like delicate, if we want to say.
Delicate.
So you you draw a lot and you have a lot of comics, and you used to publish and you keep publishing comics online. You do your own comicsology, you have all these amazing arts and works that you're doing, but you were really into the indie ambient, like the indie environment of comic book publishing online. And now slowly, as a personal experience, I know that you're like going a little bit like leave it there, pulling yourself out from that community. Can you tell us why, if you want? Can you like share your personal experience?
I think what I'm really moving away from is the free webcomic model. Basically I had 2 webcomics that I put out for free, and I was putting in like 20 to 40 hours a week on it, because I bought into the hype that said if you publish it online, it will become famous at one point. And that's not true, because I've seen webcomics that have been published for a long time, never made it into the mainstream, were never made into movies. You know, they may in some point in the future, but I don't have 10 years of my life to put into that. And this is my personal view. This is not the view of anybody else. This is just my thing. I cannot. How do I say this? I have bills.
Just say it.
I have bills, and it is better for me to work on things that push my career forward, including illustration. Because the thing is, I'm an illustrator first. I'm not a comic artist first. Comic art is a subset of illustration. That I'm an illustrator, you know, and professionally, I have a degree. I have a degree in fine arts. I can say that I'm a professional illustrator. I have a plaque, and I have a plaque that says graduated. I done graduated.
I'm legit.
I am legit. So, I have the professional accolades for illustration. And comic art is a subset of that. And so looking, and I think you and I have had multiple conversations about this, that, we're illustrators first, and comic art is something that we've done on the side. And I think, and I was talking to my friend, Frank Haba, and Haba, I'm sorry, Frank, if I messed it up. Oh my gosh. We were talking about how, it's this kind of like faulty idea that if you publish it online, it's going to instantly become famous. And that's not true. And now what he's doing is he has his comic published with Go Comics, and they also publish Garfield and other stuff. So he's actually going the professional route, which is great, in terms of getting your stuff published. And so, but I think a lot of people are not doing that, and that's fine. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to say that it's wrong, but personally, from my experience, I am not willing to put out so much free work, because some of it, there is a point, in my opinion, that it becomes spec work, and I have a problem with. Of course, if you're a designer, you will hate spec work, and so I started feeling that. Actually, that's what it came down to. I started feeling that about a year ago, that I was creating a ton of spec work, and one of my friends, he knows who he is, and he's an awesome dude. He's another illustrator. He mentioned that, in some ways, some webcomics can become the dank memes of the internet, in which people will spend a few seconds on it, on people who worked 8 hours on this thing.
Yes.
They'll spend 3 seconds looking at it and then move on. And there is no monetary compensation. This is to me not a necessarily worthwhile endeavor in terms of if you're trying to make money. If you're doing this as a complete, I do it because I love it. I'm doing it because, this is something that I always want to do. This is a hobby, and this doesn't take a lot of time. That's fine. I'm not saying webcomics are bad, and I'm not saying the current market necessarily is bad. But if you're going on there to think that eventually your stuff is going to be, there is a chance it could be picked up. There is a chance Disney could contact you. There is a chance all this could happen. However, in the meantime, you will make nothing. And so I'm moving away from, because what I've done is I've had 2 webcomics and people, it's had great traffic. I've had one webcomic had like 8,000 people, 9,000 people, broke the website.
Oh wow!
In terms of daily hits,
Uh-huh.
but that wasn't making money. And
Yeah.
I don't, as a business, I cannot look at that and say at the end of the year that that is successful.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, because if I'm in this for legitimate reasons, I need to be in it to have some sort of profit or some sort of,
Yes.
even if it's a publication deal, and none of that's happening. And so, basically, what I'm doing is I'm writing things for people to look at and then forget. And so, with Space Barista, which is my current comic,
Yeah.
for a time I started up a Patreon, and kind of went through this. Space Barista is going through a rough patch, because really what is happening is I'm trying to get out the rest of the stuff that I have done, the rest of the ideas that I have done, and then I'm moving into print comics and indie stuff that people will have to pay for to buy.
Yes.
And so, because I cannot, I don't know if I want to wait 10 years, because the thing is, to me, what I see as being the proper way of producing your stuff is produce it so that it will make money for you,
Yes,
help you pay
absolutely.
bills, help you sustain yourself, because I have a problem with just making free stuff all the time and not monetizing it in some form or fashion. Not selling a book, not selling merchandise, not selling something to help you recoup that time that you've given out. And so there has to be some monetary compensation for that, or else you're just basically dumping your pearls into the wind in some ways.
Totally agree.
And I just don't believe it's sustainable. I don't believe it's proper business practice, to be honest. If you're going if you're wanting to treat it as a business, then it's improper business practice to give all of your product away for free. It just doesn't work. And the other problem is, so many people are making webcomics now that you must spend a lot of time to get noticed, and you must have a really good idea about what you're doing. And I had something happen where I released the first Last Anomaly, which was one of the Comixology comics I have. And this guy offered to do a review for it. And what he did was he compared my comics to Marvel comics.
Ah.
Now that, I believe, is completely unfair, because I am one person. It's not going to be perfect. But I'm not a team of 20 people going through the conceptual to the editing phase. And we all know how powerful synergy is within teamwork. I mean, synergy is a real thing. It's not just it's basically the vibe and the feel of how a team operates, and that's how good stuff is produced. And I am one person, so there's I'm gonna miss that synergy between people. I have friends who look at stuff, but it's not the same thing as saying having team meetings where you're like, what about this, and then narrowing
as a
it.
single person, you do the pencil, the inking, the coloring, the pagination, and the writing. Everything from you, and it takes a lot. That's really silly comparing like an independent comic from.
And it's really disheartening too, because you're like, why in the world am I being compared to Marvel Comics that has, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry right now? That's not cool. And he was just like, well, this isn't as good as Marvel Comics, and this isn't as good as Marvel Comics. And I'm like, well, okay. And so he obviously was just wanting to, but this is kind of the issue that this is the attitude that some people have, is that, well, your indie comics are not as good as Marvel comics. And I'm like, you know what, you need to sit down, because this is my concern. I'm seeing more and more of this armchair thing, where people are coming in, they don't produce their own work. Okay, they don't produce their own work, they don't produce their own stuff. And then they sit there and say, well, you have this, and this wrong with you. To me, that is completely invalid. And I think I understand wanting certain things from your beloved franchise, but this is where we get into a really dicey area of demanding from the creator things that you subjectively want. Sometimes I've had people demand certain things of Space Barista. And and that's part of what made me sit here and go, I'm not making spec art for these, for people. And I love Space Barista. I love the idea. I still have so many ideas of stuff I want to do. But I think I'm going to, honestly, at this point today, okay, August 2nd, 2015, I think I'm going to reformat it and then try and submit it and get it published as an actual comic.
Amazing.
So, because it was cute as a one frame thing, but I'm kind of sitting here as I'm making the book. I'm like, man, I could really just try and submit this to Ani Press or, someone else, like one of the indie comic places that might take it. Because that's kind of the whole point of me doing any of this. Is to
absolutely. That's the main goal of everything. Like,
and that's why it's
like getting published, getting recognized for your work.
Yeah, and that's why it seems like I'm going back and forth, because I know my tweets will be like, yeah, it's back. Well, yeah, it was. I mean, Space Barista came back for a short time, to get some of the ideas out and to get the new format out that I wanted. But that doesn't mean it's going to stay, and I know it's very difficult because some people will be like, well, you don't know what you want to do. Well, I kind of do. I'm just trying to figure out how to get it. It's still my content. So I mean, Last Anomaly, I'm still I'm still working on like issue 3 because I'm still one person, and trying to make sure I get the best stuff out there. And I'm just at this point I'm kind of needing to take a break because I've been working. So I have other personal projects I need to work on and other illustration I need to work on, and I kind of got overly focused on comics for a while, and that's. As an illustrator and as someone who does professional stuff, getting overly focused on one thing is a bad idea. And
I overwhelmed pretty easily.
Yeah. And I walked into this as an illustrator, and I'm going to walk out of this as an illustrator. My career is more than one tiny thing, and I need to kind of back up a little bit and just kind of I will still work on Space Barista, still work on my personal projects, but it's really more just focusing on what I want to make of them. And I understand some people will not be happy about that. People were not happy about me quitting Space Barista as a free thing, but that's okay. I mean, they weren't, I at the end of the day, every person has to make decisions to, what they think is best. And that's what I'm doing. And so, but really what it comes down to, so that's kind of where I am right now. It's a very nebulous place, but it's really me sitting down trying to figure out what is best for the brand that I've created. And the thing is, I have a full-time job, and that's my focus. That's kind of my priority right now, is to make sure I keep doing all that and my career moves forward. And so, I mean, and I think you and I have talked about this a little bit. It's really difficult to work full time and then to make a brand that it's like as a one person, as one person, it's like you're spinning so many plates. Sometimes things will simply drop, and then it's gotten to the point now where people are getting angry. Sometimes some people are getting angry because I'm not spinning as many plates as I should, and I'm getting some attitude, and I'm just like. The thing is, as a professional, I walked into this as a professional and knowing that I was doing web design first and illustration second. I walked into this arena and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, popularity contests and clicks and all of this. And I'm sitting here going, oh, no, I'm not in high school anymore. This is not. Oh,
yes, exactly.
And it's not indicative of everyone. So if you're listening to this and you're one of my friends, no, don't. Shut up. This is not about you. You're awesome.
Probably.
No, it's not. It's not. If they're my friend, then they're not a part of that, because I've become much more selective of who I am and am not interacting with, on a professional level. Because to me, it comes down to being professional. So I have, and those people that I tend to really connect with and interact with are not people who tend to do the cliquish thing, because I really just don't have time for that, professionally or personally. And I know that, and I try to always be around people who have that same mentality. Who, we don't have time for this. We don't have time to, and that's why I've been tweeting a little bit lately on political stuff and like personal rants and stuff. That's really not something. It used to be, back in 2008, Twitter was really for just speaking your mind. It is not a safe place for that anymore. And I recently interviewed someone named Jennifer Ely. who is a professional illustrator. She does a lot of big client work for people, and I can't really say who, but she's worked on Box Trolls and some other movie things. And she said, we were discussing that, the internet is not a safe place for you to voice your opinion. It is now the place of, in some ways, it can be the place of bullies, and has cost people their entire career. For, it's not saying what they said was good, but if someone makes an off-color comment, you could have the internet coming after you and doxing you and getting your address out there, and that kind of thing. And I have had one person threaten me physically over unfollowing their wife. I had an incident happen where I unfollowed someone, and then they shared on their public Facebook and on their Twitter their husband saying that they were going to come after me. So it's full of crazy people, man. And so I am really, what I'm doing now is reducing my presence in terms of what I share online. I have a private Twitter account now that I tweet all my personal stuff from, that only, very few people are on. And Twitter is not, social media is no longer safe. This is now just PR. All social media is PR. And it is not somewhere, you can have, I know that I know several people that I am friends with professionally, and the people that I interact with professionally only have maybe 10 or 12 people on Facebook, because those are the only people that they're willing to interact with on a day-to-day level with, saying their mind. And that's actually very healthy. I think it's very healthy if you're not trying to advertise or interact with other people. And, because what I do in art, I interact with people often, but I honestly sometimes see opinions and I just go, oh my gosh, and just, it's, Twitter is for promoting your work. It is not for saying anything that you think could be remotely controversial, because you could lose so much for it. So, because if someone thinks that your stuff is off color, then, because I began becoming paranoid, with Space Barista and with others, thinking that it was too, I don't know, insert political name here. And
seriously?
Yeah. And it just, I don't know, it just, moving into the realm of comic art became very unusual for me. It became a very unusual experience. And again, at the end of the day, you have to go back to the basics. And I'm a professional illustrator first. And I do not need to interact with toxic people. And I recommend, if you're out there and you're dealing with a group of people that is toxic, think of your career, because they're not worth it. I promise you. This is for you. This is for you that is listening, that has been dealing with toxic people and thinking that somehow the benefits will outweigh the bad stuff. It will never happen like that. People who are jerks online will be jerks to you in real life. They will not help you.
Or probably people that are jerks online, probably in real life, are afraid of everything, because having this powerful communication technology that you can rant about everything and not having consequences, because you're not already there. You're sitting in your small room, you don't produce anything, you don't share anything, but you just criticize everyone. And it's
I've had several people who criticized my work online and said really nasty things, and I was talking to someone yesterday actually about this, and they said, well, of course they're going to say that. There are no repercussions. You're not going to walk up to them and say, I want to confront you about this. They said it's very safe behind the computer. And they said, of course they're going to say some nasty things like that. They would probably never say that in real life. And I just kind of, I should have known this, but I just kind of stepped back and was like, yeah, that's true. That's true. And so, I think we need to take everything online with a grain of salt, and just realize we're all invincible people.
Critics are always good. Everything you do, you need someone that criticizes your work, because it pushes you to improve yourself. But there are critics and critics. There are just critics made to help you, and critics just made to offend you, because I don't know why. I don't know the meaning of that. So,
it's called, I think there's something called the circle of trust, which is they're people that you trust professionally to critique your work, because you understand that they are rooting for you. They're here to support you, and they're here to help you move forward and to grow, and it's a mutual thing. And so, I think outside of because the thing is, I will allow, and you know what, you can fire people from your circle of trust.
Yes.
That's okay. It's it's okay to, if someone becomes overly critical of your stuff, and I've had this happen, you can fire them and you can just not share information with them.
Yes.
That's okay because it's yours. It's your circle of trust, and it's what. And in a lot of ways, I've actually locked down a lot of my work and
Yes.
kind of go back towards the other professionals that I know they do illustration and design on a professional level, because in a lot of ways, sometimes things just don't work out. Sometimes people are good for a few critiques and then they go a little crazy, and you have to kind of back away.
Yes, that happens.
And so but always find the people that professionally you can trust their opinion, and they have to have good work for you to trust their opinion. Because if they have bad work, they're going to give you bad advice. And so you just have to. It's very subjective when you're getting into that, but always try to find people that are going to support you long term and have good work and are nice, because they can give you the most scathing reviews of your work and say this is utter junk. You're never going to do well with this specific thing, and they're not telling you you're a bad anything. You're not a bad designer. You're not a bad illustrator. This certain work just sucks.
Yeah, exactly. This is what can I do with this information?
Yeah.
It's not helpful for me. Okay, it sucks.
Yeah.
And what? Why it sucks? Just
Exactly.
explain. Yeah. And also one important thing that we should remember: every time we receive a critic, like normal, important, harsh, whatever it is, we always have to answer in a positive, normal, calm way. Because it's the best thing to put them outside of their comfort zone. If sometimes they put who are they? I don't know. These users put these comments just to have a response, like angry response, something that they want to upset you. So if you answer with, "Oh, thank you for your comment. I cannot disagree, but I will try to apply your suggestion," all this stuff. That's it. That's done. You won't have any reply anymore. But if you feel upset and you feel frustrated, and you say, "Hey, you piece of shit!" No, you have to do it. It's the worst because they want that. So
I had and I think always responding positively is you're completely right. Because some people will go out there and they will try to minimize you. They will try to make themselves feel better. They will try to, you always respond professionally to those people, because even if they're out to get you and they're out for blood, don't give them the blood they want. They're bullies. Don't give them
let them starve.
And if they try to claim the victim thing of saying, you're the bully, you're this, you're that, but if they're the ones telling you this online and trying to call you names and call you out and make you angry, you're not the bully.
Exactly.
I've had it happen a few times where people have tried to go after me about something I've said or whatever, and I've always just responded positively by saying, well, why would you think that's not what I said? And just being clear. You can be clear and confront someone in a way that is not angry.
Yeah,
exactly. And that's really the best way to do it, because the thing is, the less emotion you show, the more they lose, because they're the only ones angry. Because if you walk up to someone and someone's very calm, the other one's screaming at them, you're always going to take the side of the person who's calm, because you kind of link with them or you look at them and say, okay, why is this person so angry at them?
Exactly.
And that's really, it's always the best way to diffuse a situation.
One of the best advice to survive on the internet.
Yes. Never
if you be a survivor. Yeah. So what's your idea? What's your idea of this magical place called the web? How do you feel it's gonna evolve? Because now we are in this kind of situation where thousands of resources, free resources online, pretty much you can learn whatever you want, and you have thousands of social networks or places to meet people and create communities, create even work projects or business truly or inside on the internet, without having a physical contact. How do you feel this house of cards is gonna maintain its status, is gonna collapse, or what you feel about, like, I don't know, in 10 years. And also I want to connect other question, like in 10 years with all this situation, how do you see yourself doing what you see yourself doing?
Oh gosh, I looked at that question when you sent it, and I was like, oh god, I don't know. I have no idea. 10 years, I don't know. Well, I think my answer last year would have been completely different from my answer this year, because we've seen so much stuff happen. I think we're seeing the internet. I think we're seeing social media. Let me say this. I think we're seeing social media in its adolescence, or its infancy, depending, because adolescents can act like infants many times.
Yes.
We're seeing this bizarre social justice stuff happen. We are seeing people being bullied and their careers being destroyed because of something they tweet, because of something that they're doing that other people have been doing for a long time. We are, and I'm not going to be specific because I'm not entering into this thing, but we're seeing a lot of selective social justice, and I think this is a very bad thing. But I also think this is indicative of the internet growing up, because I'm seeing comments now via tweets that were being recognized and promoted a year ago are no longer being recognized. Various forms of hate speech that was recognized a year ago is no longer being recognized. We're seeing, if that's, we're not seeing as much of a jump towards internet social justice as we were last year or the year before. We're seeing people sit there and say, we ruined somebody's life by doing this, or worse, they're finding the wrong person who did something and they're destroying their lives. And that has happened multiple times. When we had the Boston bombings, Reddit decided that they found the right person and they doxed them. Well, guess what? It turns out it was not the right person. In fact, it wasn't even someone who had any kind of remote ties to anything happening at Boston, period. They were just an innocent bystander, from what I understand. And there's multiple people, though. It wasn't just one person. It was multiple people. Reddit decided that they were going to find that person. And they got the wrong person. And to this day, I mean, I was on Reddit when it happened, and I was like, "Oh man, did they find him? Did they find him?" But even Reddit today will look at that and go, "You know what? We were so wrong." And it's not like Reddit. I mean, Reddit's not. I don't think it's a monster. But the people on there say, whenever that comes up again, they're not doing it. Whenever they say, well, look at this could be the person, and everyone says, no, remember Boston bombings, we're not doing this again, it is not our job, we are not the social, they learned, we learned, because we were all on Reddit at the time, we learned, we're not going to do this, we're just going to let it, one of the recent things happened, the Cecil the Lion thing. We were not, Reddit was not, they were not the people. I was not on Reddit. I'm not really on Reddit. I'm not on Reddit anymore. But I would check in. I wanted to see what their reaction was when the Cecil Lion thing happened. They were not doxing the guy. It was not Reddit that was doxing. It was people on Twitter. Like Mia Farrow tweeted out his personal address. It's becoming less of a mainstream thing to get onto the social justice bandwagon, and it's becoming more of a fringe thing. And I think we're going to eventually, and the reason I'm saying this is because we're going to see probably a maturing of social media down the road. We're going to see, if something bad happens, people will have individual comments on it, but they won't jump on this bandwagon of trying to dox somebody and trying to find them out. Because, I mean, when I see stuff on Reddit and I see stuff on other internet sites, they've already all learned from that. They're not going to do it again, and it wasn't all of Reddit. It was certain people on Reddit who decided that they were going to be these armchair warriors and dox somebody. It wasn't the majority of the users on Reddit, and it's like this majority of the users on Twitter. You can't say all of Twitter's a certain way. So anyway, I think we're going to see less social justice in that way. I think we'll see more proper justice in some ways, like more petitions, more White House petitions to get something changed, more movement towards actual actual political stuff that will change things and change laws instead of.
Do you feel that like social media is growing, or anyway like people on the internet are growing in a more conscious and more calm way of analyzing things? Even how do you think like new generations, because I have like cousins and like friends of like children of friends that they have like 12 years old, and they start like posting, they have Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, they have everything, they're on Reddit too. So you feel that this consciousness is affecting in a positive way also the new generations, or
it depends on the
go back again?
I'm gonna have to be really careful how I say this. It depends on the parents of the people. It depends on the parents of the children. If children grow up and they think that they can post full nude body pictures of themselves with their faces on it, they're in for a world of hurt. Because here's the thing: everyone can use the internet at 12, but everyone stratifies by the time they're 20. That's just how our society currently, with the systems in place, that's how it works. So if you're a 12-year-old and everyone else is doing something stupid and you do it too, like posting full nudes of, like if you're 18 years old and everyone's like, oh, we're all sexting each other, right? And everyone is 18 years old, right? They're all in 18, 19, 20, 21, 25, 30, because this is all happening to 30 and 40-year-olds now too. They're all trying to sext each other. The problem is, once you get a picture of yourself on the internet, it does not go away. And people are losing their careers. There was like that coach who was trying to sex his girlfriend, quote unquote, we don't know, and ended up sending a picture to his volleyball team, right, of high school girls. And the thing, it's just people are just, I'm having a hard time trying to figure out if these people are just functionally dumb, or if this was like relegated to a specific segment of the society. Because dumb knows no boundaries, right? So
exactly. It's
like
genetic.
As soon as you start sending pictures of yourself, man, you better be fully clothed. You better be, because here's the thing: this is not, I don't get people who are like, well, you're infringing upon my rights to sext. Okay, that's fine, but all I'm saying is the world is a bad place, and it can be a bad place, and it's full of nasty people. This has not changed historically. So, what you're doing is there will always be an opportunity. You have to stop living in Disneyland, because there will always be an opportunity for someone to take what you say out of context, and there will always be an opportunity for someone to, photos you taken, or photos you taken, or things you've done. And they could take that and they could use it for bad purposes. Even if it's the most innocuous, they could take pictures of kitty cats and put like 666 all over it, I mean, that's just the ability of humans to do bad things has not changed and will not change anytime soon.
It's infinite.
So it's not an issue of demanding the world change for you. It's you growing up and realizing that the world may not change for you, and you need to be wise about how you approach it. And so the thing is, we both had the internet when we were 12, right? It was back in AOL days, and we didn't have necessarily social media. But we were wise enough to know there were certain things you just didn't do on the internet, right?
Yeah.
And I can't tell if this generation, people in this generation, the stuff that I'm seeing, the stupid stuff that I'm seeing, I can't tell if this is the fringe or if this is endemic, because I tend to think that it's all going to stratify itself out again. And the people that are doing this really bad stuff, like throwing puppies into rivers and stuff, and then filming it, like those are the people that are going to end up in jail. Those are the people going to end up killing people. And the people who are not doing that are the people who are going to end up running the country. So, because, if you just... Because the thing is, people will use anything you do against you if you run for the country.
Anyway, in 30 years, if you run for presidency and you have a video of yourself at 12, like killing a dog, they're gonna have that video and they're gonna publish it.
And they're gonna publish it. And they're gonna call you a sociopath because you killed puppies when you were 12 years old. And they're going to
with like Mitt Romney, right? That he strapped his dog on the top of his car.
Yeah, it was a stupid thing to do, but they made him out to be a psychopath killer,
Exactly.
and it happens on both aisles, and it doesn't matter where you're going to run; the other side's going to take it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so, it's just wising up, I think, and understanding that social media can kill you as well as help you. And it's gotten to the point lately where there are certain things I just don't talk about. I don't,
exactly.
you don't ever use social media to tell people where you are. You don't ever use social media, not on Twitter. You don't use Twitter. It's like Foursquare. You just don't use Foursquare, man. Just don't use it. Like,
Oh yeah,
and
geolocalization.
it's geolocation for me, because for me, if people know, I mean, well, I'm not going to say don't use Foursquare. Let me take that back, because I don't want anybody coming at me and saying he said don't use it.
The CEO of Foursquare is listening to this.
The problem is, if you do, okay, let me say this: if you're going to use geolocation anything, lock down your account and don't tell people where you live, and don't be like, I'm checking in at home. Oh, I'm going to be gone for 3 hours, because they've had a rash of people doing that where they have your full name on there. Like, if you have your full name on there and you have your home address, people are going to know when you're gone. And so you can use Foursquare, and I have used Foursquare for years. I don't use it anymore, but I did use it for years under a specific name, under a name that only my friends would know, and then never checking in at home, never checking in close to where I live, and sometimes even checking into places like an hour after I've been there, So there are ways that you can completely use and enjoy geolocation features, either on Facebook or on your phone, but it's these people who are going, my name is so and so, this is where I live, and this is how long I'm going to be gone. It's like, and this is the security system I have, and here's the number how to get in.
You should leave the key.
It's just and so it's good that just generally turn off geolocation unless you're willing to use it in a certain way, and it's just, people say geolocation is bad, but it's really not.
No, it's
because
actually really helpful.
I mean, we can use geolocation for our Starbucks app, to pull up our card on our phone when we're close to one, or close to one of our star locations. And so it can be used for a lot of good. It's just, you have to be wise on how you use it. So I think what's going to happen is people are going to start wisening up. I think we're going to have enough internet horror stories across the board for people to start using the internet with more discernment, I think, than they have been. We're going to see less horror stories. We're going to see more prosecution for legitimate cybercrimes, because we are seeing it now, but not a lot. And we're going to see this kind of weird, you're using the wrong word, so we're going to sue you type of thing. That's going to go away. That's going to turn into the McDonald's lawsuits. I think I think we're going to have more standardized classes in teaching of how to use the internet for young people. I think it's going to be incorporated into the school systems.
That would be great.
I think eventually it's just going to happen. It's just the kind of where our society is going. The thing is, technology has grown so quickly that a lot of people just cannot adapt to it and are having trouble adapting to it. But you and I have already grown up on the internet. It was slow, but it was still there. And so we have a whole new generation of kids. But honestly, it just comes down to, it's actually the same issue of like what we called, quote unquote, which they weren't, but there was a term called latchkey kids, where they were just put in front of a television. The stereotype was being put in front of a television and having access to anything that was on TV as a kid, versus the kids who were made to go outside and play and to use their imagination. And I think we're probably may have something similar in these new generations that are coming up, versus the kids who were just given an iPad. And I've talked with several parents that, it's these kids who are given an iPad to make them shut up, versus the kids who were told to engage the world. It's the same thing. It's just a little more extreme on both ends. So I don't think we're going to have the time machine H.G. Wells of, the people who are super intelligent versus the underground monsters. Or like the super intelligent versus underground monsters, stratified versus like the natives, of whoever was left. I don't think we're going to have. Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be more of a difference between the clouded civilization that you go to, and then a country that does not have that. I think it's going to be, I think your phone is going to be more of a, how many of us actually use our phones now for actual phone purposes, versus social media.
It's really rare.
phones becoming more of a personal attachment device. It's becoming more of
exactly.
somewhat an avatar in the classic sense of your representation of who you are across the board. And I think phones are totally going that direction. I think they're going to continue that way. I don't see it changing. But so I think in 10 years the internet's going to be more mature, I think, than it is right now. We will not be running to everybody's defense. If somebody kills an endangered lion, I think there will be less witch hunting and more more laws passed.
Serious,
I
serious
think there will be serious political activism, I think, in trying to get certain laws passed and saying, if you're an American, you cannot go across the sea, because that's not what's happening right now. They're trying to kill the dentist. They're not trying to pass laws that say you cannot go out and game hunt as an American citizen. That would be the quickest way.
Yeah, exactly. And the smartest way.
Outlawing
actually,
any kind of contraband, outlawing any sale of, you cannot import endangered animals in any form or fashion. Because if it's true and he brought back the lion head, which I don't know, and but if he brought back any part of the lion, or anybody who goes out there game hunts and then comes back and brings back parts, really I think 10 years from now people are going to be saying, let's pass laws to inhibit anybody. So if you go out and you game hunt as a dentist or a doctor or something, you can't bring back any of that.
Exactly.
Or saying it's illegal to post pictures of you with an illegal game kill or something. Just it's going to be more law. It's going to be more legislation and more making sure laws are passed than individual witch hunting. This is my optimistic future, because I'm a futurist, and so I tend to think the future is going to be way better than it is now, than our current situation is now.
Post-apocalyptic.
That's that's my futurist view of how.
What about yourself? You smartly avoided talking about yourself. But in 10 years,
hopefully I'll have some published work, like published comic work, or not comic work, something. I'll have something published. I will be working in development in whatever it becomes in 10 years, probably, I think.
Awesome.
Hopefully I'll be doing better things, working with better technology than we have now. We'll be hopefully building systems as well as working with them. Building new systems. Hopefully you and I can build some. We were talking about this, have some fun comic or art related stuff, some kind of fusing of art and tech. And I think, I don't know if I think web development is going to be around for a while. I think it's going to turn into something different down the road, because we're really seeing more of we're seeing the design aspect beginning to take over the development in some ways, because development did not have to recognize art, for a long time. They didn't have to recognize design for a very long time, and now they do. And now design is legitimizing technology in some ways, to the point where people are in the cult of certain major companies and the stuff they put out, because their branding is so strong. And we're now seeing brand begin to dominate technology. So I think I'll be doing kind of what I'm doing now, hopefully on a much more advanced level, working with technology and branding and art and design in some form or fashion, which is kind of what I'm doing now, but hopefully I'll be much more advanced and cool and have a hover car and, hover car.
Or hoverboard.
Hoverboard, yes.
Cooler.
They did make that, so yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna like Lexus is releasing a hoverboard in a month, like a commercial, simple hoverboard. Oh.
Yeah, and hopefully in 10 years we'll have like alien contacts or something, contacts an alien civilization, and maybe I'll make a comic about that when it comes out. I don't know.
But you're gonna open your new office on Mars. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. I'll open my new office. I actually seriously considered signing up to be one of the Martian colonists.
Really?
But then I was like, I'm gonna die on Mars.
For sure.
I would prefer going maybe in the future my descendants will travel to Mars when it's fully terraformed, and it'll just be kind of a cool all of Mars will look like Vancouver, like all wet, and forested, and beautiful and
Oh
amazing.
yeah, whole hipsters with like drinking beer at
Space
4
hipsters.
p.m.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
Vancouver.
There you go.
That's Vancouver.
Yeah.
And doing yoga at 6 a.m. in the park. That's
Yeah,
Vancouver.
I think I just will tell my descendants, well, don't go to Mars until it's completely covered in green and water,
Yes.
and
There's
it's
an atmosphere.
it has an atmosphere and magnetic field, and
Yes.
or go somewhere that is completely terraformed and not a dome structure that could be destroyed by a meteor, or an asteroid. So make sure the planet. So even if we develop warp travel and can go to another solar system or something.
Well, we are almost at the end of this amazing podcast. It was like marvelous talking to you. You're like a really amazing person and interesting. It's always compelling talking to you, as I will listen to you for like 4 hours.
Thanks.
The compliments at the end are always the best. I want to conclude this with a bunch of like rapid questions. First, describe yourself in 3 words.
I have no idea. I thought about that for like weeks and I have nothing. Dude who draws, I guess. I don't know.
Dude who draws. That's perfect. That's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna use this as
a
title of the podcast. Michael Dambold, dude who draws.
Dude who draws. Yeah, that's my Instagram profile. It's like I'm a dude who draws and likes coffee. So. Yeah.
The other one is if you can recommend an artist, a song, a book, or whatever like form of art, famous or non-famous, to someone. To recommend?
Yes, my one of my favorite artists is Hiro Shige, and he did the Wave of Kanagawa, which he did a lot of wood block prints. That artist is amazing. He knows exactly what he's doing with balancing form and function and composition and a lot of detailed art and a lot of blank space. So if you want to do well in art, I mean, if he knows what he's doing, and he carved it into wood, so that's mastery. Artist I've been listening to lately is my friend Tim got me on this. It's Lights, Lights. That's her name. That's her artist name. She is from Canada. She is amazing. I'm listening to her music on repeat. It just gets you so emotionally wrapped up into it. It's really wonderful. And so that's probably the one that I'm listening to right now most of all. Let's see. A song, just randomly the animation, I guess. I don't know. I can't really recommend any of that. Well, there's one thing that I've been listening to. I've been listening to Lights lately, and one song I keep repeating is oh gosh, I have to look at it. One song I keep repeating is oh shoot, where did it go? Hang on.
Go for it. No.
I had it. I actually have it right here.
Yeah.
Where'd you go, Lights? Okay. And you can find her stuff on Spotify and on I'm totally plugging her Spotify and radio. From All Sides, I think. From All Sides is her current. Like, I've just been listening to it over and over again. I don't know why. Amazing. It's just really nice. But basically anything from Lights right now is my jam, and it's really good. It's like it's not exactly, I don't know. When she starts talking about science and music, I'm like, I'm there. Yeah. I'm totally there. So yeah, there was like a lyric that says arms like orbits. Like they have arms like orbits, and I'm like, oh my gosh, planets, So just
planets, astronomy, yes,
yeah, astronomy. So
that's great.
Yeah, and there's another one called Meteorites, and like a lot of her older stuff has like really scientific like stuff in it, and it's just I don't know, I geek out at that. I'm totally.
I will be sure to check her out.
Also, the Jurassic World soundtrack.
Oh,
I've been listening to the Jurassic soundtrack a lot. Yeah, just dinosaurs. I will watch anything with dinosaurs in it.
Dinosaurs.
Just dinosaurs. Like,
so, where can we find you now? Like, you talked about a lot of your publications and books and comics, illustration. So, tell us, where can we find these amazing things?
I have my site, which is michaeljamesdambold.com. But also I'm on Twitter, which is Michael Dambold, twitter.com/Michael Dambold. I try to keep everything kind of simple. My name is hard It's weird. I have a weird last name, so I just try to keep all my social media connected to it.
Uh-huh.
So it's Michael Dambold, Michael, D is in David, A M is in man, B is in boy, OLD is in David. Michael Dambold for Twitter. That's my handle.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have a Facebook page that I don't use, which I would just ignore. But Space Barista is connected to a site that I have called Cambria Comics, and it's like the Cambrian Age, Cambria Comics, and that's really my hub for everything I'm doing for comic and art stuff. So my Comixology links are there. You can find Space Barista from that site. Basically, all that I'm doing comics-wise is located there, including my podcast and my, which you need to come on, by the way.
Absolutely.
Including my podcast and blog are on that site too. So basically, all my the stuff that I do on the side is on that site.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but my professional work, which I'm actually in the middle of updating right now, is on michaeljamesdambold.com.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really kind of where you can find me, and I'm always on Twitter saying weird stuff. So like
that's the best part of Twitter.
yeah, it's totally the best, and retweeting your tutorials every chance I get.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been like 1 hour and 50 minutes. I don't think you're gonna cut anything about it because it's all so interesting and it's perfect, and I think users are gonna love it. A lot of insights, a lot of good advices, and thank you so much for your time. It was great.
You've been so much fun. It was great.
Okay. Well, talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.